Hey everyone, my name is Wayne. I am an education scientist. I am an engineer with a software company, and I'm an AI enthusiast. I'm creating a community called Free Beer Studio, and that is freebeer.ai. And within the community, my intent is to teach as many people as I can how to use AI tools to make their lives better. That could be to improve their business, it could be to simply automate certain things in their lives, or just to get better answers to questions that are burning inside them. So, with that in mind, I am creating a series of videos that will be posted in my community and freely available. I'll also share these on YouTube um, so that you're able to access them, and hopefully they're helpful for you. Um, let's get started. This is video number one. So I'm going to share my screen here, and I'm going to open an interface that may be familiar to some of you. If we're going to teach AI as it's used today, I think it's important to show the tools that people are familiar with and scaffold that learning into something bigger. So what we're seeing here is ChatGPT. So that's OpenAI's chatbot, essentially. This is trained on the OpenAI models. We can see those, many of them here, some other models available. This is simply a chatbot. I can type in something, ask for an answer, and it's going to provide me an answer. This is what's known in the background as a large language model. That essentially means this is a model that has been trained on predictive text um, through many points of view, many references and sources. So when I use this, I ask something, and I'm just before we get started with that, one of the things that I always like to start with when teaching computational processes is the idea of what happens in a computer program, or what happens in this case, a chatbot. So what we're going to see is an input, processing, and output. Very simple. If you ever had any experience in computer programming, computer science, you probably learned that as one of the first fundamentals. So that's what we're going to focus on here is input, process, output. So the input in this case is what I type into the chatbot. And when we type something into a chatbot, that is what we call prompting. And prompting in and of itself could be a book length topic. There are many white papers out there from the major LLM providers, OpenAI, as well as Anthropic, who produces the Claude models, and even Meta, who creates their own models. Many others out there. Those are just the most popular and the ones that most people are probably familiar with. So the prompting part is what I'm going to ask the AI. The LLM that's inside, the predictive text engine, is what's going to give me my answer. This, again, has been trained on books, the internet, statistics, data lakes, and it's equipped to find the right answer. And then the output is going to display on the screen here when it gives me that answer. So we have input, processing, output. And let's take a look at that. There are many other knobs and buttons here that we'll explore as we go. But in this lesson, I just want to cover input, processing, output. So let's do that. First lesson, when we prompt an AI, we don't necessarily want to type in a search phrase like we would do in Google or your favorite search engine. Instead, we're going to talk to the AI like we talk to a person. So let's take a look at that. I'm going to tell this AI, let's say I want to know about the popular tools and LLMs that are available for learning AI and for using AI. Let's put that into words. I always consider prompting programming in English or your favorite language. In my case, that is English. So what I'm going to do here is give this AI a prompt. I'm going to say, please, because I always say please to the AI, because we never know. This could end up being our overlord in a short period of time. AI could be more and more responsible for our wellness and well-being in the future. So if that's the case, I want to be nice to it now while I have the chance. So please tell me about the tools and LLMs that are available to me, and give me a basic learning path for understanding artificial intelligence. So with this simple prompt, and this is a simple prompt, prompts sometimes can be pages long. In this case, I wanted to provide a simple example. So this is what we're doing. Please tell me about the tools and LLMs that are available to me and give me a basic learning path for understanding artificial intelligence. So with that in mind, we're going to hit the go button. The arrow that points up here is the go button in this case. So when we do this, we very quickly get an answer. And this is the output, right? So there's processing going on in the background, and then we get the output from the chatbot. So let's start with the tools and language models you have access to here. This is talking specifically. I should have been more specific. And the more specific I am with my prompt, the better the answer I get. So again, programming in English. If we put garbage prompts into a chatbot, we're going to get garbage answers. So in this case, it's telling us about ChatGPT because I wasn't more specific with my prompting. And it's going to tell us about those tools and then walk us through a basic learning path for understanding AI, which is pretty much what we asked for. So the tools available, code interpreter, which means that I can actually interpret Python code within the chatbot here. So if I were to, for example, upload my sales data in a CSV or a spreadsheet, then it could take that data and plot a chart for me. It can create images or analyze images that I've uploaded. I don't know if anyone's tried this, but make a cartoon version of my picture or describe what you see in this picture. So if I were to upload a picture into ChatGPT and ask it to analyze that picture, then it could do that for me. It has web access, so the chatbot can search the web in giving us its answers. I doubt it did so in this case because we're actually asking it about some of the most fundamental things for an AI, which are, what tools do you have and how can I learn AI? But in other cases where we're asking about current events or things near our location, like find a bookstore near me, then it could certainly use the web to find that information. Again, it's important to distinguish this from a Google search or another search engine because it's not that. It can provide some of the same answers, but not necessarily, and it can do far, far more. A Guardian tool, which gives official answers about election-related questions. And then we have a canvas that's built into ChatGPT. We'll explore that at some point in the future. And that's just a way to work on longer documents or multiple documents together. Now, as far as large language models go, again, here it's describing the ChatGPT or the OpenAI models. So we're currently talking to GPT 4.0, which is a multimodal model, which means it can handle text, code, images, audio in its chatbot, essentially, and performs well across academic, creative, and technical tasks. So there's obviously some LLMs, large language models, that are geared toward or trained on specific types of data, scientific data, academic data. This is more of a general purpose model that allows us kind of a breadth of capabilities, but not necessarily the depth that some models might have. So as far as a learning path for AI, what it has suggested, understanding what AI is. So what is AI? Types of AI, narrow AI, general AI, and super intelligence. Super intelligence is something that's in the news a lot nowadays. We hear about AGI, or general intelligence, artificial general intelligence, which is the capability to think like a person. And so think of AGI as that point where we pass the Turing test, which means a person would not be able to tell if they were talking to a bot or a human. And then we have super intelligence, which is beyond that. In what ways does the AI surpass human intelligence? So a lot of that in the news as AI models advance and advance. But this is a way for us to think of AI, right? Machine learning versus AI versus deep learning. And those are great topics that we'll get into. But I think this is a good learning path overall. It does give us some resources, which is one of those advantages of AI, is that, it can go out and search the web for us to give us answers. And it has an AI for everyone course here, which I've seen before. I've heard a lot of great reviews about that course. And there's YouTube videos, which I may include some of these resources in this lesson and in the notes on the video, just so that we have access to that and so that you have access to that. Then we have machine learning basics, the supervised versus unsupervised learning. That's how AI models are trained, or machine learning models are trained. Linear regression, decision trees, KNN. These are algorithms used by AI, by machines to learn. So we have resources again, a Google machine learning crash course, then a book here that's recommended. Deep learning and neural networks, networks that mimic the brain. CNNs, RNNs, we'll get to that at some point in the future. Backpropagation, frameworks like TensorFlow and PyTorch. sounds like I'm speaking another language because I kind of am. But these are more advanced topics, and we'll certainly get to those as we progress. Natural language processing and LLMs. So natural language processing simply means how is the language that I'm entering into the chatbot processed, and how does it process its language back to me in order for me to be able to understand it. So we have information here on things like tokenization and embeddings, which are all how do we handle the information when we put it in. Let's say we're putting in, right now we used a simple prompt, right? But what we could have used for input could have certainly been a 500-page PDF. And then we have to treat that data differently because it's not like it's going to process that as fast as what we saw here. So there's things like tokenization, which means that a model is going to use its context window to break down into chunks the data that we provide it if it's needed. It's also, embeddings is the way that we would take that information, put it into or extract it from a vector database. And vector databases are useful in a process that we call retrieval augmented generation, or RAG. So I'm going in a lot of different directions here, but I just kind of want to cover what's on this learning plan. Ethics, safety, and the future. There's certainly a lot of questions around AI and how to do it best and how to do it safely. That is the point of this topic. So lots here. There's a YouTube video on AI ethics by Oxford or MIT, and there's tons and tons of blogs out there. Lots of news articles, RSS feeds about how to ethically and safely do AI and how AI can advance, even how it can solve problems for us as humans. So as far as next steps go, it suggests a custom roadmap, interactive exercises, or mini projects. I definitely want to bring in as many projects, not many projects, but many projects as we can. And then it asks what I'd like to focus on next, and what do you think happens if I respond to one of these questions? Well, it's going to consider that input, it's going to do some processing, and it's going to give me further output based on the question that I ask or the prompt that I provide. So I hope that was helpful. I want to show you a different view of the input processing output that I've been talking about with ChatGPT here. I'm going to use a different tool to do it. This tool is called N8N. And what N8N is an automation tool. When I open a workflow, it gives me a blank workflow, which means I first need an input. Luckily, there's an add a first step button right here. So if I click that, it gives me many ways to trigger this automation, right? So in this case, I'm going to trigger it based on saying something to it. So I'm going to use a chat message to do that. And when I choose this chat message, it's going to put a block on the screen. And this is simply a trigger that says when a chat message is received, which means I'm going to start here, and when it gets a chat message, it's going to do something. Now I can interact with this through this open chat. Opens a little chat window in the bottom of the screen for me, and I can type hello to this workflow. Unfortunately, the workflow right now only contains an input for the chat. So I need something to do with that. And the next step, of course, after input is processing. So to get this thing to process, I'm going to click the plus here, or I could go up to the top right and click a plus there. And I want an AI to talk to me and to do the processing here. So I'm going to bring in an AI agent. And this is going to use the connected chat trigger node, which was before this. And I'm going to leave this as is for now. So I have an AI agent that's connected to my chat. Can I use it? Not really, because it's missing a couple of things. I don't know if you can see the red star right here. That means that's a required element. I don't necessarily have to have memory and tools, but I do have to have a chat model at a minimum, right? So what is this going to do for me? So I need a chat model. Let's go back in the previous example in ChatGPT. We were told in our answers that we were using GPT 4.0. So if we go back to our workflow here and I choose a chat model, I'm going to choose OpenAI. And I mentioned previously that there were many, many models out there. So there's, as I said, Anthropic, Azure, which is Microsoft's, AWS, which is Amazon's, DeepSeek, which is a Chinese model, reasoning model. Then we have several Google models here, Grok, which is created by Elon Musk, Mistral, Olama. Then we have Open Router, which is a multi model subscription. So I subscribe to Open Router. I may have access to all of these other models within that. For now, we're going to stick with OpenAI, and we're going to give this that same GPT 4.0. I was using the wrong account. So ChatGPT 4.0. GPT 4.0. There we go. So the exact same model we were using before. Now, the model that goes into the agent allows it to do that processing because this is actually the LLM. So what we're going to see is I put in some text. The AI agent will call this model to give me an answer, and the answer comes right back out. I don't necessarily have to put a chat response node here. It will do that automatically because that is the end of the flow. So as long as I have all of the required elements here, I'm able to execute this flow. So let's take a look at that. Please explain the difference between between the latest OpenAI models. So what this should do is take that input, look at the agent will call on the model to do the processing, and then we'll output something to our chat window here. So we see that happening here. We got the input, it's doing the processing, and in a moment we'll see the output right here in our chat window. And this does say as of its last update, right? Because we didn't give this the capabilities to search the web with this particular workflow. we simply gave it a chat model, which means that as of the date this was trained or the last time it was updated, it's going to have certain information. And based on that information, it gives us a response. And we see here, just going to zoom in, here are the models that it's giving us. It's comparing GPT-3 versus GPT-4. So obviously GPT-4o was introduced around the time of GPT-4. And if we continue to scroll down here, we've got things, some of the build names like Da Vinci, Ada, very computery and creative names, which are cool for generative AI. What applications can the models be used for? What's the size of the model? And that typically, the size, when we talk about that, is typically the number of sources that the AI was trained on. And then fine tuning, which means that we're going to take this to train it on specific tasks, which means the AI could be used for scientific applications, academic applications, engineering applications, etc. Certain models are trained on text processing only. So there are specialized models that do just that. We have other models like GPT-4 Vision, which is, essentially a reader. It can use vision capabilities. Ethical considerations and controls are included here in the way that these models were trained. So it gives us an accurate answer based on its last training. So again, when we look at this workflow that we've created, and that's what we've done here, we've used N8N to create a workflow. And I'm going all over the place with my scrolling. And this workflow essentially is an AI agent. We built what we saw here in a very simple form. So does this cost us anything? It does. You can subscribe to OpenAI as a subscription, pay the ChatGPT price like most folks do when they're just getting started. I think it's $20 a month for their Plus account. And then if you choose to do so, you could pay for the API access only, which means I can, for a much lower cost, use this on a per call, per API call. And the API call is simply I put something in and get something out, right? So it's a way of accessing the model in the background through things like agents and workflows, so that I'm able to make individual calls to that, not an unlimited subscription like ChatGPT, but more of a on-demand or as-needed access to the models themselves. And I can call any of those models that it's described and any of the OpenAI models that are available simply by paying that API fee. And it's not really a fee. I simply put in a certain amount of money, and as I use the API, it withdraws from that account. Again, much cheaper than the $20 a month that you pay for ChatGPT. But this is really, really convenient to be able to go in and just say new chat and start chatting with the chatbot. So that is, again, video one. I hope that it was helpful. I hope you got a couple of good looks at simply how the input processing output works in both the chat interface and in the workflow that we created within N8N. So again, freebeer.ai is my website. There's a community link there, which will take you to surprise, surprise, community.freebeer.ai, which is where these videos will live in addition to being posted on YouTube. I appreciate your time. Thank you for joining me today, and there will be another lesson coming up.